All right. Well, thank you for attending today's community meeting regarding Country Club Way. My name is Laura Kaifas, and I'm with the Tempe Neighborhood Services Office. I'll be helping out with hosting today's meeting. As you may know, the study that is taking place is a result of a Marianne Corridor neighborhood grant that was applied for and received by the Alameda Meadows and Santo Tomas Neighborhood Associations. The neighborhood's representatives have hired the consulting firms of Work Urban Design and Y2K Engineering to collect and analyze data and the neighborhood input and propose design solutions based on this information. The consultants will be our presenters this evening. Today's meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the project website in the next day or so. There's also a survey to collect your input, and we'd like you to take that. We'll have all the links on the last page, but you can find that also at tempe.gov/forum, FORUM. So before we get started, just a little bit of information on how to participate. After the presentation, we'll have a question and answer period. You can either type your question in the chat or the Q&A section. We prefer the chat if that's okay. It's easier to monitor just one. But I will read them for the team to answer, or you can raise your hand and I will unmute you. So you can ask the question yourself or you can type it in. Either way is fine. To raise your hand, find your name on the participant list and hover over it. The hand icon should appear. Click on that. That will put it by your name and then click it off once we've answered your question. If you're on a cell phone and not your computer, click the chat bubble. There are a lot of questions. We will try and take them in the order they're received, but we will get to them. No worries. Okay, the comment period is about 2 weeks for this, and you will see that posted when you go to take the survey. Okay, so we have a whole bunch of folks with us today on the panel. I'm gonna let the consultants introduce themselves first. Brian, you wanna start?
Sure. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for attending the public meeting number 2. My name is Brian Sager, and I'm a landscape architect with Work Urban Design.
And I'm Jesse Weston. I'm also a landscape architect with Work Urban Design.
And also on our team, as Laura mentioned, is Y2K, and Young is out there. Young, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Young Kaprowski, traffic engineer, supporting work on this important project.
Also with us, we have Kathy Hollow, our city traffic engineer. You want to say hi, Kathy?
Hey, good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here. This is Kathy Hollow.
And a new member of our team, Karina Trejo. Did I say that right, Karina?
Yeah, Trejo.
Trejo.
Good evening, everyone.
Glad to have you with us. We also have the neighborhood chairs. We have Ann Till from Alameda Meadows. We have Carolyn Nelson, and she's from Santo Tomas. We have Ellie Tierney, and she's from the McClintock neighborhood. And we have Preston Hunter. Preston is with Palmcroft.
Actually, McClintock.
Oh, McClintock. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
There's a lot of you to remember.
Too.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, well, let's get started. We've got a lot to cover. Brian, over to you.
Thanks, Laura. So we do have quite a bit to cover. We want to really focus on some design concepts. And so our agenda tonight will be introductions, which we accomplished. I will provide a project update. Then we will have the majority of the meeting will be spent focusing on the concepts. And there will be an opportunity at the end of the meeting to provide input, and we welcome that. That's the whole point of tonight's meeting. So whatever input you can provide, we'll have an opportunity for open discussion. But as Laura mentioned, there are other ways to leave that input, primarily through a survey, which we will link to. And then we'll close. We do have an hour and a half scheduled, but we may not take the whole hour and a half, but we do want to honor this project and give it the time that it deserves. So in terms of the project background, this is our second public meeting. We're showing on screen the project boundaries. The project area is the Country Club Way, essentially from East Meadow Drive to Cairo Drive. That's our study area, and there's a number of intersections within that corridor area. this is our second public meeting. In our first public meeting, we reviewed the project goals, and the project goals, they're worth mentioning again here. The project goals primarily are traffic calming to accommodate different modes and user groups, to enhance or recognize site visibility, enhance public space, heat mitigation, non-point source pollution mitigation, urban ecology, and ultimately to produce construction documents of the selected concept. And, you know, we do want to focus on an achievable plan. You know how studies sometimes end up on the shelf. Well, we want this to be achievable. So that is a project goal. After the first public meeting, there was a survey accomplished after that, and we had a lot of input, and we did get a lot of great information. I just wanted to highlight on some of those here. So what we're showing here is the data. This isn't all of the questions that we asked, but these are the ones that are really worth pointing out. Some of the questions on the first survey were regarding improved pedestrian or improved crossings for pedestrians. And you can see on the left side of the screen, the scale is from left to right. Left is least important, right is most important. So, and the lighter the color is also responding to most important. So on the question of improving pedestrian crossings, it got a lot of positive most importance. So a lot of people feel like it's important to improve the pedestrian crossings. Another one was regarding traffic calming on the bottom left, and it also received a very positive response. A lot of people indicated that, you know, almost half of the people who responded said that it was the most important issue in the corridor. Improved walking areas, it received over 50%, at 52.48% of the respondents indicated that it was the most important aspect of this project. That's a really high and positive response for improved walking areas. And then down bottom right is improved visibility for drivers at intersections. This is not as strongly positive. It's more of a lukewarm response. You can see that some people did value it, but just not as highly as some of the previous questions. We have another page here. So on top left here was a question about medians. Are medians a good intervention to make? And this is a pretty evenly split of responses. A lot of people said, no, it really wasn't the most important issue at all. And then almost as many people said, yes, it's one of the most important issues. So you can see that that's an evenly divided. There's no strong response regarding medians. Bottom left is change lane markings. And a lot of people, and then the middle category here is neutral. So I think what's happening here on the change lane markings is a lot of people don't really have an opinion about the lane striping, how the lanes are striped and how wide or narrow they are. They're kind of saying, well, you know, it's not my wheelhouse. I'll leave it up to the professionals. So I'm neutral on that. So neutral received the highest response on lane markings. Top right is to reduce congestion. Again, a lot of neutrals there. I mean, I think people recognize that it is kind of a well-used corridor. There's a lot of activity in the corridor. That's why we all love it, because there's a lot of different modes happening in there currently. And, you know, reduced congestion received a neutral response in general. And then bottom right, reduced traffic speed. This one received the most of category 5. The most votes of any of our questions were regarding traffic speed. And most people said, yes, reducing traffic speed is the most important issue on this project, on this corridor. So those are 8 questions. The survey had more than those. And believe me, if you did the survey, we received your results. We've consolidated all the answers. And if you left comments, thank you for doing that. We are, you know, have read the comments, we've organized them, and we are acknowledging and using those comments for this next iteration of design. But I thought these were an interesting sort of summary of that public survey number 1. So we talked earlier about the project goals, and we're going to focus now on some ways to achieve those goals. Jesse?
So in order to look at this kit apart and look in the toolbox, first we looked at what was the Tempe step manual, and then which is now moved into the Tempe Neighborhood Traffic Calming Guide. And then we also cross-reference that with NACTO standards, and NACTO is abbreviation for National Association of City Transportation Officials. So in our corridor, we try to look at, what would benefit directly on our site. So if we're looking at strictly just the intersections on our site, then one of those pieces could be bulb outs. And the benefit of bulb outs is that it kind of moves the sidewalk out. It gives you greater visibility to cars if you're a pedestrian. And then it helps kind of narrow those spaces a little bit. The other tool for us to use is traffic circles. And traffic circles and roundabouts are a little different. Roundabouts are for higher speeds, moving people around quickly, while traffic circles tend to slow people down and make you move through the intersection. Now, once we start coming out of these intersections, moving on these straightaways, another piece is medians. So the benefit of a median, it helps again narrow that lane width down, and it also could be a refuge for people crossing the road. It gives them, they're not crossing the road all in one chunk. It is able for them to kind of stop and move through it. The next one is a two-way choker. Again, that's narrowing the street down, making those travel lanes a little bit shorter. And another benefit of this is if you bring vegetation in, you can provide curb cuts and provide stormwater mitigation. And the final tool in our toolbox is chicanes. And again, you're basically taking these same curb extensions, you're offsetting them and having traffic kind of move through in a different way. And again, we can incorporate the stormwater mitigation. And through all these tools, we want to go back to those project goals, right? How can we calm traffic? How can we provide different modes for different user groups? How can we help site visibility, enhance public space, heat mitigation, urban ecology? So through all these pieces, be thinking of that in the back of your head, like how can all these pieces accomplish all those goals? And then a lot of these are the high-end approaches to it. So what happens can we do it in a phased approach, or can we do it in a temporary thing that doesn't cost so much money? So here's kind of like different ways where just like getting out there with, paint, putting markings on the ground. You lose the ability to collect rainwater and mitigate non-point source pollution, but you're kind of going for these goals on traffic calming and other pieces. And then going from this level, going into a more hardened approach, semi-permanent, taking those same things with traffic circles, bulb outs. On this picture with the two-way choker where it could be planters, it provides us where you don't have to excavate or dig into the existing pavement, and you can have some vegetation out there. And then same thing with the chicanes. So we're gonna move from our site from the Meadow Drive intersection down Country Club Way, starting at the north and then moving to the south. So this key map over to your top left on your screen, you'll just see that as we go through each one of these, it's just gonna move down. And what we're doing is we're gonna hit the intersection, then the straightaway, intersection, straightaway, intersection, and then the final straightaway. So we'll have 6 areas. And kind of as a background, don't think of, like, let's say we're looking at this intersection and then it's not necessarily always matching up with the next straightaway. What we want to do is just kind of get in your head and thinking in the right direction of like, okay, here's these 5 items. Okay, now we're putting them into our site. Okay, now how do all these pieces work together? So for this option A, same thing. If we're moving with the traffic circle, how does that move traffic around it? Does it provide any ability to capture rainwater, stormwater? These little blue arrows are showing kind of grading and what the water is flowing. So in this situation, no, you wouldn't be able to capture any rainwater except for what's falling directly on it. And then on option B, okay, moving down to bulb outs, what does that do? like we said, decreasing that distance that people have to move across the intersection. And then with option C, it's kind of that mix with the bulb outs on the south side and then using that median on that north side. And obviously, if you've been to the site, there already is kind of that signage that's here in the middle. So you kind of have this situation with it anyway.
So one consideration is during open discussion, when we're referring to these areas, if you have a thought or a comment on one, please note, the area and the option, because that's going to be kind of our common language on how we refer to these. So if you wanted to talk about the traffic circle, refer to, we can go back to area 1, option A, the traffic circle. Thanks. Go ahead.
So moving to area 2, coming out of the intersection, going onto the straightaway. Some things of note is that we do have overhead electrical over here on the western side. So that does impact some planting. There is no driveways in this section, except for we just have the alleyways that are right here, right in this middle part. So 3 different ways of looking at this is, we on this option A, because we're gonna do doing the 2-way chokers, we're gonna squeeze those lanes down. It's gonna cut the traffic speed down enough that you're gonna feel comfortable on a share road riding with traffic. On the opposite side of that is, let's say for option C, we'll put a median in the middle with the traffic lanes, and now you have dedicated bike lanes that are running all the way through that. And then of course, option B is, okay, let's mix that median combined with, as you're coming up to this intersection, again, we've slowed traffic down enough that you're gonna feel comfortable coming through the bike lane and mixing with cars. And again, this is what we're trying to propose to you guys. So would you feel comfortable with option A, with the Shero, or option C, hey, we don't want to mix with the cars, we want a dedicated bike lane? And then looking at everything in between, right? So here we can do stormwater mitigation with the planting islands. That's going to provide a lot of shade for pedestrians walking up. On this one here in option B, now we don't really have a lot of shade on this western side. So there's a lot of give and take in all these items. So just kind of be thinking about what are the positives and what are the negatives? What does it accomplish? What doesn't it accomplish? All right, so moving into area 3, again, another intersection, kind of the same situation as the area 1, mixed in with traffic circles, bulb outs, and then kind of moving two-way chokers. So area 4, this is when it starts to get a little complicated because now we do actually have houses with driveways going out onto the streets, which we didn't have in area 2. So now here it is, area 4. How can we accomplish those same goals while allowing people to go into their driveway? Or how do you provide parking? Or how do all these things work together? So in option A, there's a benefit to this southwest corner where there is no driveways coming out of it. So that gives us some room to work with. So in this, we're kind of proposing where we could stack parking in this area. You have the protected bike lanes. And then again, in this northeast corner where we don't have a driveway, we're doing another area to park cars. Again, option B. Option B is there's kind of no parking. So again, we want to hear that. We want to hear, like, is that acceptable? Is that not acceptable? How does this work with the people that live in this? Because what we don't want to do is come in and be like, well, we're the designers and this is what you're going to do. No, this is your neighborhood. You tell us what's going to work. We're just trying to get these things out there in front of you. And then option C, again, looking at some of those options, putting parking on one side. Here you'll have the bike lane next to the door zone, but if on the west side, then you have a 3-foot buffer with the bikes. So, and you can see through it as you're moving through it. Hey, this one does provide a lot of shade. This one doesn't provide a lot of shade. This helps bikers out, you know. So area 5 is unique in, this was the one with the site visibility where the stop area is so far back that it's tougher to see. So what we were trying to do with this area is bring this intersection out so that you would be in line with traffic coming south. So here's some different options. How do you bring the bike safely through this intersection? And then on option C, you know, using medians through it, using the chicanes. And then area 6, because area 5 is kind of it's the gateway from this country club way where the traffic really speeds up, and then you come across Alameda, and that's when we're really trying to slow people down. So how can we start slowing people down before they get to that intersection? So this is one where we actually do have a lot of room to work with. So in option A, we still have a lot of parking. As you can see to the right, we have a buffered bike lane. And then on the western side of it, we do have tree planting areas. So maybe if you're walking this, then maybe you're wanting to move to the west side of the street, so you will get a lot more shade. Option B is we're beefing that up a little bit more, getting the bigger planters in there. And then option C is, here we're just maxing everything out. We're double loaded. We've got protected bike lanes. You're running through an alley of trees. Like, this would be pretty amazing. And also a pretty big maintenance issue for the city of Tempe.
Trees, shade. Jesse, so open discussion. Just wanted to look at the schedule. You know, we are in the middle of the second public meeting.
I think the volume went down, or does everybody hear that?
Can you hear me now?
Good now.
Is that better?
Yes.
Apologies. So, yeah, like we mentioned, this is the second public meeting, and we have a third public meeting on the horizon. We anticipate that will be in a month or two. We're looking at March for that. We'll schedule it, and you will all be aware of when that happens when we schedule it. The purpose of that will be to present the preferred concept. And so we're kind of right in the middle of design. We're trying to get this thing done soon. We need to have resolution, you know, in late spring of this year. And then we do want your feedback. And so I'll walk you through some of the feedback options, and then we'll have open discussion. But the online survey that you will have a link to, it looks at each of these three concepts, and you'll see it on screen, and it actually asks you to select one that's your preferred. If you don't have one, there's an option in the questionnaire to leave feedback. And so it's going to be more of a specific survey than the last one, which was more open-ended in some regards. This one shows the concepts, and it asks you to select a preferred and then to leave some comments. So that's the survey. You can also always leave comments on our website. We're still receiving comments from the website. We got one last night, so thank you for participating in that way. All those are saved and archived and reviewed. And then, but we also have an opportunity right here and now to go back and go through these and review them, or to just have open discussion about these three different topics. And so that's where we are in the meeting. We got here faster than I expected, so that's great, because now we have some time to talk.
We do, and I'm looking for hands, not seeing any just yet. We are also able to see your question if you want to put it in the chat or in the Q&A.
Laura, maybe we could just go back through the areas because I don't think staff has had a chance to comment on any of these. I don't know how you want to do that.
We can do that. Okay, we are on area 1. Kathy, did you have something you wanted to add?
Sure. So anything near that school crosswalk is not a good idea and probably would not be accepted by the city. So the circle or even the median that's on the north side of that school crosswalk, I don't want anything blocking the view of those children. So at best, maybe B would work. Keep in mind with anything that has the bulb outs, your stop bar has to be before the crosswalk. And that's where the stop sign would go. So you're pretty far back, you're pushing people farther away from the street and being able to see when you make a big bulb out. So just something to keep in mind.
Are you saying that B isn't gonna work or B is?
I'm just saying, I don't know, I thought sight distance was a thing and you're gonna have to stop before the crosswalk. You can't pull forward and run people over who are in the crosswalk. So the stop sign is placed prior on the approach to the crosswalk.
So we might not be able to have as many trees there maybe too because of.
Or as big a
visibility.
bulb out, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think the median already is a problem for the buses, so A wasn't real practical, I think.
Yeah, and I just worry
So-
about C blocking the children as they cross the street, so. I know there's a guard on the yellow one, but they're not always there, so I'm not sure it's a good idea.
Well, the good thing with the B is that it does kind of buffer the sidewalk, so it might be safer in that way. Is what I was thinking.
Yeah, I hear you. And don't forget, we gotta have ramps on all 4 corners, well, 8 ramps, right? 2, 4, 6, 8. So
Yeah,
some of that, I think maybe gets picked up later in the details.
Yeah, and just to let you know, we did meet with, and by we, I mean the consultants did meet with the school district representatives from transportation and facilities and did receive some input from them.
Okay, and then the other thing I would ask that the consultants show us the sight triangles from where the stop sign is. When you get like the next step, maybe show us that proof that the sight triangles actually work. So we don't have anything in the way. We have been published on our website. You can find them there.
can I point out too, just for the traffic people's knowledge, is that there's no parking along the bottom part of B, or of the picture.
Right.
There's no parking, but people constantly park there after school. So part of the bulb out could really help with keeping people, because it's hard for people. It actually might improve visibility there, just especially when it's highly busy with kids, because people keep parking there when they're not supposed to. They have for years, even with traffic enforcement. As soon as they'll come out and enforce it for a while, then people will start doing it again, and just want to point that out.
Yeah, no, I understand. We get those issues around the city, just as you described. So, but we have sight distance triangles that we require everyone doing any kind of anything in the city to check and make sure that they work. So I would ask that the consultant do that as they further develop these.
Hi, Kathy. This is Young at Y2K Engineering. Thank you for your comments on these designs. Once we get into future design phase of the project, we'll make sure to include those sight distance triangles, as you mentioned. As a question regarding the tree plantings that are shown, do you allow single trunk trees to be planted in that area?
You have to look at the guidelines off the top of my head. There's a restriction on the size. So
Okay.
anyways, it's pretty well explained on the guidelines.
Great. We'll look at that and make sure that's noted in the design plans in future submissions. Thank you.
Thank you.
As somebody who walks the neighborhood frequently, I particularly like the bulb out plan and the maximization of trees. I have a bias that way because there's just so much hardscape when you look down the length of Country Club Way.
Yeah.
So even if we could just move the trees a little further back, it's certainly more aesthetic to go with option B than the other two, in my mind.
And you're exactly right. That's what might happen is you might just have to push back a tree or two or something when the site, once the site distance triangles are overlaid. Yeah, I'm not saying get rid of them. I'm just saying make sure people, we're following our guidelines.
Great, thank you.
I also like that the sidewalks, distance crossing the street, I think is maybe, there's a lot of kids there, I think. Establish distance for the kids to cross with the bulbs. That's kind of a neat thing about that.
Okay, do we want to maybe move to number 2?
Great.
Helpful if I zoom in on these.
Yeah, hey, Karina, you want to jump in on this one? You were taking, we met this afternoon to talk about these. Oh, maybe she's not. So again, I don't think we had too many comments, just checking the site triangles. We don't use that green dash line, so we wouldn't use it here. If we need to do a dash, we dash the bike lane white. We need to be consistent as a city as the devices that we use, not just like take something and plop it down one place and not the other place. So normally what we would do is just dash the bike line across the alley if we thought that there needed to be some kind of a warning.
Is Tempe planning on kind of because City of Phoenix is that way, and that's kind of the NACTO standard. Do you see Tempe finally coming around to meeting the standard, or do you see them fighting
So
it?
NACTO's not a federal guideline or anything, so we don't, it's not. We check it sometimes for ideas, yes, just like everybody, but I don't see us installing these all over the place right now. The latest project we had coming through didn't have them, so.
What is the issue with Tempe, or why,
I don't know
why
that
do
it's
you
an
guys?
issue. It's just we have to have a standard, and right now our standard is to break the bike lane and have the lines crossed. So.
Gotcha.
And again, I'm biased towards option A, again, because it's more aesthetic. And if you're a walker like I am, and I use the area a lot for walking every day, I particularly like the shade and the idea of having a lot more shade down Country Club Drive. And also the ability to collect the water as opposed to the use of a median, option C. So just my
I like that the sidewalks buffered, but I wonder how the trees actually will work since the power line, well, on the west side of the road, the power lines are there. So will SRP actually let us put trees in? And then there's those power boxes on the east side. What will SRP say about, some of these things, or do you guys have any idea? I mean, they're, I think, far enough away from the boxes where they can work, but sometimes they pull up there and park, but they can always park, in the alley, I think, if they're a utility, right?
Yeah, so Ann, I think we ran into this with, we had a problem with them. We were trying to put some trees in along a path as a city. And it depends on what kind of, some of it depends on what kind of equipment they need to service those lines. So, because then the tree could be in the way. They made us move a couple trees. But it depends on the line, and we should probably just, I guess, when we get a little farther, ask them.
Well, I did talk to SRP and refresh my memory, and I think we found out that as long as there was 12 feet of clearance, you can plant anything you want around the front and 6 feet around the sides. Is that correct? Do you remember, Ann?
It was
utility.
something like that.
Could
Yeah,
be.
but yeah, I think Kathy was thinking about if they had to bring in a crane or some kind of equipment, right?
They have some large vehicles that, our tree that was going in wasn't that big and they were worried about it. So I guess I would just make sure, and we had already all had it all designed. So I would make sure you check with them before you get too far down the road.
Well, the good thing about a tree is it's not too bad as far as, not
Yeah.
having it, but it's the structure itself that, would be more, I don't, I wouldn't think that it'd be a problem to have it because sometimes they park along the road, but they can always park in the alley right next to it too. I think since they're utilities park in alleys when they need to, I think. So,
Yeah,
but
except if they're trying to reach that overhead line, they're gonna be parking in the street, right?
yeah, yeah, the overhead lines just they've got a picture of where it is. And I always wonder down at the bottom, the person who has the yard at the bottom of the page, he actually has a bunch of trees planted there, but they're slow growing, so I don't know
There you
what's
go.
gonna happen with his trees.
The only
And
question I had then was the little, at this, let's see, this is the, option A at the south end, that curve, as cars turn right, I don't know if that becomes a danger for like bikes or other cars, because it's gonna, I don't know, I'm not sure how the car's gonna operate down there. Oh, wait, this doesn't even show that. Did you change it from the ones I had a while ago? Oh, no, I see it right there, right next to where the Shero is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
option A,
Yeah,
this flare out here.
yeah.
Actually, this one, a car turning right.
I just wondering how we think that'll work. So. Cars tend to just take the space and then situate themselves where they need to be, so.
Yeah. I think, Kathy, this will end up changing once the design preference for each area is identified, then I'll be working with the team at work to make sure that it is one continuous streetscape, and we'll be able to connect, the intersection design with the segment design, and we'll check for these areas. So this is likely not something that would be proposed once all of the areas get merged together.
Okay, and I think there's a catch basin on the north side of Loma Vista there, on the east side of the road. So just be aware. You don't want to block the catch basin. Or need to extend it or something. I mean, there's ways to deal with it, but. And then at the north, like on option A at the north end, the sidewalk needs to have a crossing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Area 3, Loma Vista Drive intersection. I'll zoom in on this and take a peek.
Loma Vista. This is the one with the catch basin on the northeast corner. So just be aware.
are you talking about that thing that goes across the street?
The thing that goes under the sidewalk in the gutter line.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. I didn't know if you're talking about that. There's kind of a dip in the road on
Yeah,
the
the gutter.
south
Yeah,
side.
I know. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'm talking about the actual structure that collects the water.
Yeah, that's on I know where you're talking about, but yeah, actually all these homes, some of the homes on the corner have complained about that dip. If people drive fast, it's like a speed bump.
In reverse.
Yeah, and so people's suspensions go pop and wake them up at night. That guy on the one of the guy on the north
Gosh.
corner northwest corner pointed that out to me. I never really thought about that, but he said people go zooming over that and it makes a lot of noise. So
Okay, again, I would just ask that you check the site, show the slight distance triangles when you end up selecting one.
Can we vote for the pictures? Because I really like the picture on option A.
And
What
just,
do you like about it?
yeah, go.
Well, I'm just so impressed with the shade that it offers, that again, the trees and the opportunity to have catchment systems for watering.
And Lucky sent me a text. She said she can't get in to comment, but she likes the greenery on A and B.
Right.
And I'm not sure if people realize, I don't know if anybody else is having trouble that are in the neighborhood that, you're welcome to,
I've
write a question.
I've unmuted Lucky right now, so
Yeah,
Lucky,
it looks like I've been unmuted. Thanks.
you're welcome.
Yeah, I like the greenery. I mean, it just pops. So however that fits in, it does make a difference.
Of course, it looks like it's someplace in Vermont or something.
Right.
It's not Arizona.
I was thinking somebody might notice that. But actually, if you drive down College, it's that shady in College going from
Yeah.
it's not the same greenery, it's desert landscape, but it actually looks like that only
Similar to that. It does.
it really does. I mean, it's just, it's
And
just like that. So
we'll take
and
the million. We'll take the $1 million it made to make it too. So that'd be great.
Yeah, it was one of the big comments in the comment section of the survey was actually that most people pointed out that section of Tempe on College from Alameda to Southern is something they is a model for the area. And then some people had a couple other areas, but that one had by far the most just regular comments.
And this is probably a good time to remind everyone that what we're doing here is a design study. There is no actual money at this point for implementation or construction of any sort. So we're at a very preliminary stage. So anything that actually gets constructed will either be through neighborhood grants through the Neighborhood Services Office or through a CIP project. Just want to kind of keep everybody, on the same page with that.
Is there any possibility to get in with the CIP project? I know that's long and wide.
Yeah, Kathy might be better to speak to that and how that process actually happens.
Yeah. I think, I mean, it's possible. I won't say it's not possible. We have others that are going through. And I think once you have a completed design, it becomes a very strong possibility for a project. I can't make any guarantees, but it's been done.
Okay, thank you.
We thought we might have some more discussion when we're just talking with the city, later this month, when we have our just regular project status kind of meeting, maybe discuss just a little bit more about that kind of thing. But we know there's no guarantee, you can't really do anything until you get to the next step as far as funding, so.
Okay.
This is when we'll get some comments.
Okay, I'm still not seeing anything in either the chat or questions. Is there anyone wishing to be unmuted?
Brian and Jesse, there is one question that hasn't been answered in the chat. that relates to, is the water part, the plants of the design included in these designs? And I believe that might be referring to, will the designs include the irrigation and landscape?
Yeah, that will be part of our submittal.
Thanks, Young. I missed that one. Appreciate it.
Laura, will the city be maintaining all this?
If it's a grant project, yes, that is typically how that works.
Well, you know, I just as a note, I actually had a discussion with Marilyn Derose, right? Is her last
Yep.
name?
You got it.
And she had said that the maintenance of this area wasn't really a big deal, and but that was in our conversation, you know, if they, you know, if we were to do it. But we've been able to, you know, we've been maintaining areas that we've done in our neighborhood, like with Keep Tempe Beautiful, and you know, organizations that we can get to volunteer to help with trash pickup and just clean up, you know.
And Marilyn has joined us in the meeting just in case anyone is.
Yeah. So that was one thing we had kind of discussed, but it probably depends on whether it's a grant program or, I mean, this is kind of big. We'd have to do this. It'd take us many years of individual grants to get through, you know, the whole street if we did it that way. And in that case, we, you know, if we were doing it grant wise, we may or may not put watering in those, you know, individual areas. We might try and just go for plantings that are pretty low, you know, the lowest water use.
Yes.
Possible.
So we've had another question pop up about, is water part of the design included in these designs?
So my interpretation, Laura, is that maybe we just address that, and that this question is regarding irrigation to the plants.
Yeah,
Yeah,
possibly
generally.
speak about LID design, maybe?
Right. Well, so the water drains in a way that we would try to capture it in different ways. We can open up a curb, we could try to bring in water, but you know, realistically, a plant here would need irrigation, and any water captured from LID or low impact development concepts would be supplemental, and it would help that plant grow a little faster, grow more healthy, and it would sort of tie that into the natural systems that a plant is more used to. But it's not enough to keep, generally speaking, until you get a plant that's, you know, mature and stabilized or established. Yeah, and that takes a long time, and it does require irrigation to get from, you know, day one through establishment.
So with,
But I just gonna point out, you know, that some areas in Tempe have done neighborhoods, you know, have done neighborhood grants to do like traffic circles, and they haven't put irrigation in, and I'm not sure, they do have trees, like desert trees, and maybe what's happening is like the houses on the corner are cooperating to water those to get them started or something. So I'm not sure exactly how they've managed that, but in the neighborhood between rural and McClintock and Apache and the railroad.
Yes, Hudson Manor, yeah.
Yeah.
They have done some hand watering, as has some of the neighborhoods in the downtown area. Yeah, it can be done. It's, you know, a commitment by the neighborhood to do that sort of thing.
yeah, all the projects that we did with Watershed Management Group, we never had irrigation for any of them. So that always kind of dictated what the plant palette was. And then again, too, where, yeah, you try to hand water it for the first, you know, year or two. I mean, you're supposed to do it for 3 years, but that usually never got to 3 years. But there was a lot of stuff that was able to hold on and make it. So again, it's looking at, you know, what's the size, if we're doing curb cuts and we're doing chicanes, you know, what's that width? Is it 5 feet? Is that 10 feet? How much water are we capturing? Are we on the high side of where the flow rate's coming through, or are we bringing in everything from this entire straightaway? So it's not like a typical right away streetscape project, and you've got irrigation, and we're just doing trees 20 feet on center, and it's all the same kind. It's a lot more varied when you're having to look at, what's the planter width, what's the soil available to it, how much water are we getting, supplemental, is it dedicated? So it's a lot different approach than a typical streetscape project.
And, with the watering too, most of the desert plants, you kind of probably don't have to water them in the winter. It's really just those summer months, that you're kind of worrying about watering, at least in my yard. So,
Right. So I think we need to remember it's a conceptual design at this point. And depending on how it's funded and how it's built would dictate some of these things. So if it's a neighborhood grant project, it would have to be coming in at a pretty, small dollar amount. We're talking $40,000 at a time. So, you probably wouldn't have the money for that. If it became a large CIP project, that's a whole nother story. So, I think at this point, we're really just talking about conceptual design. We have another question, and I'm not at all sure how to answer this one. But he asks, how do we know how much Tempe is willing to spend? Yeah, that's a difficult question. Not even sure how to answer that. It really is a council decision as to what goes in the CIP, right? So you want to take that, Kath?
No, I think you're doing fine. Ultimately, it is council's decision.
Right,
So,
yeah. Once we have a design, we can, get an estimate for city council, and that helps inform, how they'll proceed. Does that help answer that question? I'm not sure.
I also think I think we want to get in what we think we need and start there, and because we don't know exactly how it's going to be funded. So I think the best thing is to do what's actually needed in the section. That's the best we can do. And then if we have to do it for neighborhood grants, then we'll pick a section and maybe vote on which one's priority in the whole thing and do them one by one if we do it by neighborhood grant,
So we have a couple more questions. This one's a little
Yes.
bit more, directly for the consultants. What is a bulb out? A little bit of a clarification on what that is.
Let's go to the
so we're going to scroll up in the presentation we actually have a dedicated page for that. There it is, Jesse.
Yeah, so the bulb out is just basically it's the intersection's kind of what it says, it's bulbing out. And it gets kind of confusing when you're putting all these pieces together. So a bulb out and a two-way choker and a chicane. And if you're dealing with watershed management group, a chicane is a two-way choker. And some cities say one thing. We're just trying to go from what the city of Tempe and their step manual and the traffic calming guide was on our naming convention. So this is aligned with what city of Tempe is. So in this situation, a bulb out is pushing that curb out.
Okay, hopefully that helps.
Yeah, the top right image, if you look at the top curb and it's in a straight line, that curb conceptually could come forward and then it would meet this curb. But you can see this little flare right there. The curb flares out, and it does it on both sides. And that, as Jesse said earlier, reduces the distance that a pedestrian has to cross the street. And that is the bulb right there. And it happens on both of these, and it increases the landscape area and all the things he just mentioned. But it's essentially, just from that straight line of the curb where it flares out, and then when it returns, that's the bulb out.
Thank you. So we had a comment that it's hard to sort of make comments when these things are going by so fast. And I just want to remind you that this whole presentation will be online, as will a recording of this meeting. So you'll be able to look at it at your leisure and you have some time to digest it. Don't feel pressured. And we are available for questions at any time. You can always email us, call, whatever it takes.
So I
Okay.
have a question on section 3 that we
Okay.
were looking at.
Okay.
There, 1, 2, 3, yes, got it.
Let me see. Well, maybe it's number 4. It's the straightaway that we were looking at before we switched back. Yes. Okay, so in this section, there's a section that has driveways on the west side of the road, and then there's quite an area that does not have driveways. And there's quite a big space between the driveway or the road and the backyards, the fences on the backyard, maybe even like 15 feet, 12 to 15 feet. Can we use that area as part of our project? And the reason I'm asking this is to be able to make a separation between the bike lane and then maybe some more trees or whatever, and then parking or whatever. I don't know. I do like A, where there's parking, and I think I see some trees, but I'm not actually positive if I see trees in number A. No, I guess it's just parking. But you know, the more trees we can incorporate and a separation for bikes, you know, if both of those can be done, and if that extra land would help us with that.
Yeah, so we just have to make sure it was in city right away. I'm sorry, I don't know if you would make that, Brian, but it would have to be in city right away for the project to be able to use it.
Okay, I think I've seen city working on those trees, but I'm not positive.
Oh, there you go.
There is, this was, the area on the left was recent, you know, landscaped within the last couple of years, I believe, by SRP.
Yes, it was.
And there's actually probably no need to have car parking right there unless I guess it's for the people across the street, but because there's no homes facing, you know.
Yeah, so messed it up. That parking was the
There we go, yes.
Okay.
so this parking was because we were having the buffered bike lane on this right
Bike
side,
lane,
so
yeah.
that this provides that parking for these people. And then for option 2, where there's no parking through here at all, it's buffered bike lane with
And trees.
landscape.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And then for
Okay, we are, well, I'm not sure if we're done.
So actually C would give the parking and bike lanes, but no extra foliage.
yeah, correct.
Okay, so with C then, I guess part of what I'm asking is if we can, if there is city leeway into that area, if that is city right of way, if we could pull that partly into our design to give a buffer for bikes. You know, we've seen some of those in your drawings, is have a sidewalk and then bikes and then a buffer with trees and then the traffic. Does that make sense?
So you're
Yes, I think-
saying almost taking and I'll defer to Young, but you have this where the bike lane would almost come up onto the sidewalk into that existing right of way.
Yeah,
Possibly,
Jesse,
the sidewalk would have to be scooted over just a little bit. I guess that's what I'm saying. And then bikeway, and then some trees, and then the roadway to kind of separate the bikes.
So right now, option A and B has the bike lane in between the sidewalk and the trees. So that's separated at the moment, as shown in option B on the screen.
So is there a bike lane on the west in number B? I can't quite tell. Okay, there it's okay.
In A and B, it is in between the sidewalk and the trees.
Okay, so B is doing kind of what I was talking about then.
Except there's no parking. And, you know, my observation
Right.
on that street is that there are 3 people who seem to want to park in front of their house. And, you know, there's a couple people in that stretch that said that we don't care if there's parking. I think, you know, there's at least 3 houses that said,
Okay.
we don't really mind that there's no parking. So maybe there's an opportunity to kind of combine A, B, and C
Right.
into something that allows those specific homes to be able to have parking. I
Have
don't know,
parking. Okay.
is what I was
Yeah.
thinking, but
Yeah. So if we went into that city right of way area, you know, just scooted it over a little bit, maybe we could create a little bit of parking. Anyway, that's just kind of a thought.
Thanks for that. We also, Marilyn did have her hand up. Marilyn, I'm not sure if you still had comments. If you want to jump in, feel free, please.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. This is Marilyn Derose. I'm the director of the Engineering and Transportation Department. And I know that Anne and Carolyn and, you know, you guys have been working through Neighborhood Services on this grant. I really appreciate that because I know you've worked a lot with Shelley in the past. You know, it's frustrating, right? It's frustrating for us with our limited capacity, and it's frustrating for you guys to navigate all of the city's programs. But you're doing a great job. I know that Kathy and her team will continue to work with you, and with respect to right-of-way and irrigation and funding and stuff. I want to say that we will, as long as we can accommodate the rest of the neighborhood's needs and the traffic, that right-of-way is obviously available. Assuming it, you know, it meets all of the right-of-way. There's so many pressures on the right-of-way, as you know, for uses, dozens of uses. So as long as we can accommodate is the uses for that particular right-of-way, we could certainly look at the right-of-way that's available. The other thing is the funding. The CIP program, Anne, I know you and Shelley have talked about the CIP program for probably years. It's you know, it's stressed, but that doesn't mean that we can't reorganize or reprioritize. So we can talk about that. My team, we can talk about that as we go through this year's capital program. The other thing I want to say about irrigation, yes, I did at one point say that, you know, it doesn't make sense to go out there and do improvements and then for your group, for you guys to go through all this effort to go out there and do these improvements and not get, you know, only to really to set it up for failure. So if it doesn't get the proper irrigation, at least the irrigation for to get it established. So I know that the consultant team that you guys are working with, you guys are spot on, right? You're working, you're trying to create whatever kind of green infrastructure you can, the stormwater, LID, use stormwater planning, and see if we can't get as much. The city is willing to provide the infrastructure, the irrigation infrastructure to get stuff established, and then see if we can't use a palette that can live then on using the natural rainfall. I know it's tough. Maybe it won't. Maybe we can't do it as well as we would like. But let's at least keep that conversation going. And so, yes, with respect to the irrigation from the city providing irrigation infrastructure to get things established, and providing maintenance after the fact. So we can, I think we can agree to that. So that's all I wanted to say. So thank you guys for being here, and I enjoy listening. So thanks.
Thank you for joining us. You add a lot. So what else do we have here?
Okay, so can I, one more thing on this area, this is area 4. Just keep in mind that the long stretches next to the bike lane are a challenge to clean behind for maintenance.
Right.
Short segments are probably a little bit easier, but like for option B, that's a little bit of a challenge to keep clean, and stuff tends to collect back there, and one, become dangerous for bikes, and two, just kind of become unsightly. So, and then any of the chicanes or bulb outs that are next to driveways, the residents just need to understand that the use of they're going to have to drive a little bit differently going in and out of their driveway. Not that it can't be done, but their sight distance is not going to be quite the same as it is when they have today. So as long as they all understand that.
So is it easier if it's spread out then a little bit more?
I think it's a little easier to maintain, but you know, I appreciate the idea of the long stretch just from a bicycling standpoint, but it is easier to maintain if it's a shorter segment. So.
Is there anybody else that is wanting to speak or to put something in the chat?
So is there some definition on next steps, please?
Yes. I don't know, consultants, if you guys want to take that, there will be another public meeting on this. Go ahead.
I guess I just wanted to have, I mean, maybe we just try to touch on area 6 though first before
Well, we can do 5 too.
5, yeah. If we want to just do area 5 and area 6, and then we can jump to that, because I think these are like when it starts getting a little bit more crazy.
My comments on 5 are the ADA ramps and access through the bulb outs for the sidewalk, which aren't shown. Maybe that's just not shown now that you guys are well aware. So, and then you might have to go through the median as well on some of the tips of these medians with some kind of with the crosswalk, just depending on how it falls.
And on the medians on the east-west direction and say on C, those are gonna block might potentially block people's driveway. When I talked to the people at one of the corners, they weren't real keen on the medians going on the east-west direction just because their driveways are it complicates the driveway. You know, and of course there's one house that has a gate and they so there's one house on the northwest corner, and they have a gate. Yeah, southwest, you're right. They have a gate and they like to pull up and bring things in the house. So I didn't know if there's a way to, like, they're only pulling up for 5 minutes, but that would compromise putting a whole bike lane in. So I don't know if there's a way to, like, have a resident 5-minute parking sign there, even though it would block the bike lane for a couple minutes. They don't park there, they just pull up and put groceries in the house, you know, in that situation, you know, or load their car, you know, it's kind of more of a loading thing. So, you know, just having that, you know, gate there could compromise, you know, the best design, because, you know, they wouldn't sign off on it if they couldn't pull up and just take their driveways in that, or their groceries or whatever in that back gate for 10 minutes or whatever, just so.
I think I see their car on A. It looks like there's a car parking there.
I think that's a bike symbol.
Is it a bike? Okay. I'm looking on a phone, so I can't see it real.
Yeah. I
well.
think that's one of that's one that Brian and Jesse put in to show a bike. But anyways, yeah, I've never seen their car there, but they pointed that out to me.
What does it look like? I'm listening to.
Oh, sorry. Okay, that's what I observed. Don't worry about it. Just say it.
Now I can't hear.
If you want to address. We do have section drawings, by the way, at the bottom of these, and these are, you know, vertical representations of the horizontal design, showing the spatial relationships of cars, bikes, bike lanes, buffers, and trees.
So in this area, again, I have the comment about the maintenance behind the long stretches. It's just a challenge. And then the other big comment is Orbit uses this piece of Country Club, and it's flag service right now. So you probably have to talk to Transit about changing that from flag service, I would think, so that you can have you're gonna have to have some way to get people from the sidewalk out to the street to get on Orbit. So crossing those facilities or those medians or whatever we're calling them.
That's a really good point, Kathy. We'll probably need to consider making sure that the bus stop actually gets moved to the median location adjacent to the roadway.
Right, with access from the sidewalk. So I don't know, your
Right.
bike's walking over it or something.
Yeah, but the Orbit doesn't really necessarily have bus stops, but maybe they could in this section.
Right, exactly, Ann.
Yeah, because sometimes there are bus stops for Orbit, but this area could be a busy area just because just during school time, the kids can actually take the Orbit down at Alameda and
Yeah, it actually goes all the way up to the school during the school year. Is that right? Is that what I read?
it does. It goes from McClintock High School down Alameda to Country Club. And so the kids from Conley, probably more from Conley than Curry, walk down to that area, and I think they catch it on the southwest corner.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't go north of Alameda ever.
No, it doesn't go north of Alameda at all.
Turns,
It
right.
turns and it goes south on Country Club Way. So you don't have to worry in that section. It's just, it's usually the kids kind of hang out. I've got pictures that I pulled up, when I was looking through Google, and I could see them hanging out at that side. Plus I've actually had residents in some of those homes complain about, the kids kind of leaving trash and messing up their landscape too. So.
Could you expand on option C? You've got 2 rows of trees, 2 columns of trees with the bike lane in between. Is that what you're showing here?
Yes, that's correct. So we have the bump outs, and then it's the bike lane, and then we've got another landscape area. So this one, this was like the extreme on the other side, right? So there is no more turn lane to go left. It's just one direction each way or the other. And then you've got the shaded bikeway coming all the way down.
Yeah.
And
So
this is one contiguous bike lane, is that correct? You can make that contiguous. It just seems like you've got a lot more vegetation, and you would be having to force the bicyclists to kind of move in and out, or is that not the case?
yeah, so
That's
it'd be
not
kind
the
of,
case.
oh, go ahead.
If you can see the cross section that is shown currently, what you're seeing in the view from the top are the tree canopies. So that's why the tree kind of overlaps the bike lane. So that might make it difficult to see the bike lane and the median underneath. But if you look at the cross section, you can see that the bike lane would be continuous in between a landscaped median and then a landscaped area next to the sidewalk.
Is that kind of configuration a lot more challenging for the city to double up on the irrigation for 2 columns of trees, or is that not a problem?
I would say the biggest concern of this would probably be maintenance.
Yeah.
If you're already running irrigation lines through it, then you're just running a different lateral. So that's not an issue, but the long stripes where you're almost needing maybe like specialized equipment or something to get a sweeper or something in there.
I also
Yeah, go ahead.
The if you noticed, you know, I summarized all the comments on the last survey, but many people, I forgot how many, mentioned, you know, about how people pass, you know, the center lanes used illegally to pass, to park, and to actually pull out. One person said they pull out of their driveway into it. I was like, oh, and I saw him do it. I was like, oh my God. But anyways, you know, it's been a complaint on Nextdoor, but the survey really showed that that center lane is misused very often because so many people had seen it. So you know, personally, because of knowing that, you know, I think it's great to get rid of the center lane where we can, because I mean, we're not a busy enough street that we actually, it's interfering with traffic if somebody's turning left. I mean, it's not really slowing anybody down, you know.
If you think of it, most neighborhood streets don't have center lanes.
Just out of curiosity, did you guys consider a median option on this one or no? I mean, I like all the trees on the side. I was just curious because you had a median on one of the others.
Yeah, on this one, we didn't do a median just because then if we have a larger median, then it's not really capturing any stormwater. Not that.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think that's just because we had such a wide street, we had so many options. It's almost like we wish we had like 4 options or 5 options we could have done, because it was like going from north Alameda, and we were so limited. Now, sudden we had all this room, so we definitely wanted some more.
And aside from that, none of those homes face the street, so you can kind of do whatever. Nobody really parks in that section except for that person who pulls up as a loading zone, and maybe, you know, there's a sign that can be put up to allow them to do it when they want to do it. So, but anyways, yeah, there's no homes facing, no driveways, so it's really, there's so much you could do. But obviously the long stretch looks really nice, but it sounds like, you know, the city would have trouble with maintaining something that long, trying to clean out all the debris that gets in the bike lane if there weren't, I guess, gaps in there, right?
Except to find a really tiny sweeper.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there was I saw a sweeper come by my house. I think it wasn't that narrow. You know, little a little small one. They were cleaning the side of my street. You're right. I don't think it was that small, but the buffering's really nice on that. I mean,
yeah, and
fantastic.
I mean, maybe this is a situation just because we're so limited on how far south we went, but maybe if you went from, if this project blew up and it was from Alameda all the way down to the 60, and now you're looking at like, hey, maybe we could do a cycle track, so then it can be with some bollards, and then you can get a regular sweeper in there. I don't know, maybe that's like a different story then, right? So then we've got the cycle track on one side or the other, and
well, I think what it would be is we could raise the bike lane to the sidewalk and vegetation level if this were a more major streetscape project. So we were trying to look at options that might fit a little bit better into more funding buckets. But if that's the ultimate, you know, desire of the neighborhood, and the neighborhood's willing to wait for something like that, we just need that direction, and could come up with other design alternatives that have less maintenance. But we're just trying to really get a feel for what are the options, the thoughts. I think the comments about the parking in this area not being necessary will also help as this area gets refined. There's just so much space in this particular section of the roadway that there is a lot that can be done.
Yeah. Now, if you went south of Cairo, then you're running into homes facing the street, and part of why the neighborhood kind of picked this section is because we didn't have as much complication with, you know, people's homes facing the street. Plus it was in our section, but that's kind of, contributed to this being the section chosen because it wasn't as complicated as far as, people trying to accommodate people parking like you do south of Cairo. So.
Okay,
No,
so
I
go ahead.
wonder, with just thinking of south of Cairo and talking about medians. I mean, I know we're not doing that in our design, but maybe that could be a piece of a project down the road with medians down, since everybody wants to park by the side of the street. We can put medians with trees from that point on.
Yeah, but
Just a thought.
there's a bunch of people who don't want medians blocking pulling out of the driveway, so that doesn't actually,
Well, it could be
it's,
broken median. I don't know. Anyway.
yeah. Anyways, yeah, there's the driveways are so close together, that it's kind of
Right.
hard to. But as you go down the street, if you talk to all those homes, there's probably several that don't want parking in front of their house because what's happened is college students are living in a lot of those houses and they're parking up the street in front of their house and they don't want those people's cars in them, So
Right.
anyways, that's kind
Yeah.
of out of the scope of this thing anyway, south of
Well,
Cairo. But.
yeah, it is. But one example that could show that would be on Alameda from Dorsey to Rural, where they have just a great big median and just, two pieces of street on the side. Anyway,
Yeah,
just for future.
that's what those people were talking about. They don't want those, or that some
Oh,
of the
okay.
people, not the, the people who were complaining. There's a lot
Right.
of, if you look at all the comments on this, there's a couple that people that say we don't want medians, and they're talking about that
That
they
area.
don't
Okay.
they don't
Gotcha.
want medians like that. I've heard it a bunch of times, so I kind of know what they're meaning.
Okay.
So we're starting to bump up against our 7:30 time limit and we want to respect everybody's time. So we just want to remind everyone that we'd like to capture all your comments through the survey so that we have them just exactly how you want them to sound and with that level of detail that you want to provide us. So you can go to the consultant's website here that's shown on the screen. And you can also, if it's easier for you to remember, go to tempe.gov/forum. Either way, you'll get to the survey.
Yeah, and you might actually have to type all caps where it's CCW. I'm not sure. So, if you're having trouble getting to the site, use the capital C, capital C, capital W. I'm not sure if it's case sensitive or not, but some things sometimes are. So.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for attending and we'll be in touch. There'll be more communication on this project coming to you through postcards.
Hey, everybody, appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
job. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.